There have been some big changes in just the last couple days in Caribbean citizenship by investment, and there are a lot of rumors swirling. Today I'm going to address what's actually happened, what could happen, and what you need to do about it. First, let's start with the facts. Two news stories in the last couple of weeks on citizenship by investment. The first, one Caribbean citizenship by investment country, and Vanuatu in the South Pacific. It also has a citizenship by investment program. Both of those countries have lost visa-free travel to the UK. Now, my understanding is most people can still fly through the UK, and I believe St. Lucians and New Vanuatu are still on that list, but you cannot go into the country. That's the first thing. I'm going to tell you why that's not as big of a deal as you may think, but those two countries, again, one of the five in the Caribbean, and Vanuatu has lost that access. We have also seen St. Kitts and Nevis, the self-described platinum standard of Caribbean citizenship by investment countries, double the donation that they require in order to be granted citizenship. It's not quite a doubling in the sense of last year's price was discounted by $25,000 this year. Just weeks before this announcement, they decided to basically extend that discount. So it went from $150 to $125, and then in July, they said we're doubling that to $250. They explained why they're doing that, and now the word on the street is that the other four Caribbean countries are debating whether they want to follow suit in terms of imposing perhaps some more conditions and in terms of raising the price. That's what's happened right now. There is speculation. Will other countries lose visa-free travel to the UK? Will other countries lose visa-free travel to the European Union's Schengen area? So it's not just the European Union, but mostly the European Union, the borderless area that Italy and France and Spain and all those countries are a part of. The UK and Ireland always set their own visa policies. They are different, but the Schengen area has been discussed. I'm going to tell you why that may not matter as much as you think. And so people are asking, is Caribbean citizenship by investment dead? I don't really think it is. For most people watching this, I'm going to explain. Now, people said, why didn't you make this episode sooner? First of all, this has been happening now for about a week and a half. The day it happened, I had a bunch of calls with people on our team. How do we serve our clients? Several days later, started talking to people who are speaking at Nomad Capitalist Live. How are we going to present this? If you pay, you get served first. We actually have clients, unlike the copycats, who are often waiting for us to talk about something. The second thing is, I wanted to see what the next step would be. And so we've had about a week and a half now without any further news. And so I'm trying to talk to people and see, what is the word on the street in the Caribbean? I'm not sure the other countries exactly know how they're going to respond yet. We'll get back to that in a minute. And I'll tell you this also, and then I'll tell you what's happening further and what you need to do. But we predicted this almost a year and a half ago. In fact, I've been predicting this kind of thing happening for almost 3 years. There were people who called it fear-mongering. I said the price would go up, and people said, no, the price of everything always goes down. I said, no, you don't understand. North Americans are a single-digit percentage of consumers for these programs. They don't particularly care about you that much. People up until the pandemic said our niche was unsustainable, selling citizenship to people from North America. How many North Americans are there? So that's a small part of this equation. But I said that people in the emerging world are going to be willing to pay more for this, and countries are going to raise the price, even if there are more programs. People said, no, it can't possibly happen that way. Now it's coming to fruition. And about a year and a half ago, I made a video called The U.S. Plan to Kill Dual Citizenship. It's our #1 video of all time by far. I suggest you go and watch it. Some of the things that I said then, back in early 2022, are happening now because this stuff has been talked about. And so quite frankly, I continue to believe that citizenship by investment, if that's the best and fastest way you can get a second citizenship, remains a great plan B. Here's the good news. If you're American, Canadian, Australian, European of any kind, this doesn't really have a huge effect on you in the sense of you can already use your other passport to go to the UK. I will tell you this, I actually had a harder time going to the UK as an American. I get asked more questions. Plenty of other Americans tell me the same story. The last time I went to the UK, I got a lot of questions for a 2-day visit. What do you need 2 days for? Are you going shopping? Really? There's no shops anywhere else? The UK was never a country where, even though it says you can go for 180 days visa-free, that's not really how it works. Ask any number of our clients, ask any number of my friends. They are a country that really wants to make sure people are not going to overstay. It's not a country to do work and travel. Oh, I've got a remote job. They don't like you doing that. So it's a very strict, regime. This idea that you can just go and spend 6 months in the UK visa-free, it's never really been that. And so I'll tell you, the last time I went as a St. Lucian, it was actually easier than it was as an American. So if you are Chinese, if you're Nigerian, if you are Indonesian, if you're Bolivian, yeah, this is a downside for you. If you are going to renounce your US citizenship and be only Dominican, you will need to apply for a visa to the UK. Getting a visa every once in a while, by the way, isn't actually that bad. The UK is one of the more difficult ones, so that is a little bit unfortunate, but I've gotten a couple of visas, and for some people it may be the price of freedom. So I don't see that as a huge issue if you are watching this, because you can still go as an American or whatever your other passport is to the UK. And if things get so bad that your passport that you're getting as a plan B needs to be used, is your first stop going to be London? I mean, it's probably not, right? I mean, hey, the world's falling apart. Hurry up, we got to get to Manchester as soon as possible. No. Now, will other countries lose visa-free travel to the UK? I don't want to speculate. It is certainly possible. Russia canceled its investor visa program a couple days before the Russia-Ukraine war under the auspices that Russians are coming in and they're causing problems using this investor visa. Russians were about 1 in 6 applicants at that point. And I said, that's a bit of a canard. And so now the idea is, Chinese spies are going to the Caribbean and getting these passports, and so let's cut that off. Vanuatu has not a very good reputation. If you just want to collect a bunch of passports and Vanuatu is one of them, cool. If you just have absolutely no other options, fine. Very rarely would someone choose Vanuatu as particularly their only second passport. And so I'm not surprised at all. Vanuatu recently lost access visa-free to the Schengen area. Dominica certainly was a more efficient program. And as Western governments perhaps look at things, let's pick on Dominica. They have had, more of a history compared to, let's say, a St. Lucia, where the program is newer, and they didn't have the same kind of volume, and it wasn't as much of a business for them. There are pros and cons to St. Lucia and Dominica. We've worked that out with our various clients over the years. Some go St. Lucia, some go Dominica, particularly if you're single and you're looking for the lowest priced passport. So I'm not sure if other countries will lose access to the UK. Again, I don't believe that means you won't be able to fly through, but it means you wouldn't be able to visit unless you have another passport you can visit on. So unless you're planning on giving up your Western passport, or you never had a good passport in the first place, then that's an issue. Let's get now to the issue of the price hike. I've always said the price of this stuff probably will go up. And so why did St. Kitts and Nevis raise its price? Well, they've always been the country that wants to raise their price and have a higher price than others. Now, we told you a while back that the US was working out a deal with these Caribbean countries to go and represent them to make sure, ostensibly, they kept their visa-free access to the Schengen area. Not so much the UK, but to the Schengen area, which is the big group of European countries. Side note, by the way, Americans, Canadians, everybody else who's not European, who doesn't need a visa to go to Europe now, is going to need to get what's called ETIAS, an e-visa, where you're going to have to fill out a form and pay, I think it's €7 starting next year, to get in. It's being widely reported all over Western media. Visa-free travel to Europe is over in 2024. That's a little bit sensational. People coming to the US already have to fill out what's called ESTA. This is going to be basically a slightly easier version of that, I understand. But for Americans and others who aren't used to ever having to do anything before they travel, it's going to be an extra step. And so just going to Europe will not be a cakewalk for Americans next year. But the deal that the US and these Caribbean countries struck was you're going to have interviews to get citizenship by investment, either in person or remote through Zoom, what have you. You're going to have to step up the due diligence. There were some other conditions we've talked about. And in exchange for that, the US would say, hey, these guys are doing a good job. Hey, Europe, keep them in your good graces. Will the US honor its agreement? Let's see. If the US reneges on such a simple agreement as that, you would say to yourself, all the more reason why I want to have a backup plan that is not tied to either the US, if that's where you're from, or any of those Western countries that get along. I would like to be from a small, peaceful country, and if that means I can't go to the UK, so be it. So St. Kitts raised the price because one of the conditions now that the European Union is talking about, the European Commission has said, listen, we want enhanced due diligence on all applicants. So that's where they dig deeper into your background. If you were Iranian or Nigerian, or in the past when they accepted Russians, or if they just thought something was odd about you, they would ask you to pay a little bit extra and do enhanced due diligence. So due diligence is going to probably cost you more in the coming months to get citizenship by investment. The interviews we already mentioned. in-person collection of citizenship documents. That was already something that was on the table for one of the programs for some years now. They're saying, hey, you've got to go to your country. Never once have I talked to anybody who said they weren't willing to take a trip to the country and pick up their passport or to put in a minimum stay requirement for a couple days. Probably not a big issue. The big one is doubled in minimum investment thresholds, and so that's what St. Kitts was responding to, where they doubled how much you have to donate. Again, there are rumors of which other countries are saying they might go along with this. No third-party involvement in transfer of funds, not a big deal for most people watching this. And then the countries can't promote the fact that their passports have this access to the Schengen area of Europe as part of their marketing. Because, again, the vast, vast, vast majority of consumers of these countries are still, Pakistani and Chinese and, all sorts of tier C passports that don't have much travel. And so the lure has been, hey, get this passport and you can travel to Europe. They will no longer be able to do that. Again, not really much of an issue for most people watching this. And so St. Kitts and Nevis basically went along and said, hey, fine, we'll double our price. We'll start putting these things in place. Obviously, listen, as I always say, the camel's nose is underneath the tent. Do these requests beget more requests? I have said at some point in the future, maybe they will install a Malta-style physical presence requirement where you've got to go for 2 or 3 weeks and spend some time. Maybe they'll increase that. Maybe you'll have to go and spend 30 days or 60 days as a mini residence requirement to establish a link to the country to get citizenship. That would not totally be beyond me. But right now, other than the fact that the price may go up, these things other than, saying, hey, we're going to start imposing more and more requirements, if you're a clean person, you're going to pay more for due diligence, and they're going to find out you're clean. You're going to do an interview, and if you're an American, Canadian, Australian, Polish citizen, or whatever, I don't think you'll have any problems. You've got to go there to pick up your passport, fine. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are good for 10 years now. And there's a few other things which I just don't really think, affect most Westerners. So the price may double. Let's see what the other programs do. Obviously, this is a late-breaking story. Will these countries, here's the rumor, will they lose access to the Schengen area? I don't know. I do think that the US and the countries in the Caribbean said, hey, let's impose some new criteria. Now the EU and the European Commission actually has their own criteria. It seems like some of them will go along. By the way, if St. Kitts goes along and the others don't, and the worst happens, you'll have the choice. Do you want to pay more and have visa-free travel to Europe on that second passport? Or do you want to pay less and have a passport that's more of a backup plan? Maybe we'll see something like that. I don't want to speculate. Here's what I do know. The UK is a different animal in that we've talked about it, and I told Nigel Farage, if you're an investor, if you're an entrepreneur, there is really no clear route for you to get residence in the UK. And going there as a tourist, really, from my perspective and many others' perspective, does not get you very much time. So the UK is kind of an off-limits place for most people these days, unless you want to actually get a job in a company. The European Union, the Schengen area, there are countries that have digital nomad visas. There are countries that have self-sufficient visas where you just say, hey, here's my 3,000 euros in passive income a month. There are countries that will continue to have golden visas. Portugal was going to cancel its golden visa. It is now back, at least most of what it was before. There'll be one or two fewer options, but the Portugal golden visa is back. Those serve as a residence permit, which is better than a tourist visa. And I've always said, wouldn't be the worst thing to have a residence permit to a country or block of countries you want to go to. Unlike the UK, where it's obviously one country. Okay, you could become Irish by descent, and then Irish citizens can go and live in the UK. But anybody else, the UK is kind of off limits. Europe is still wide open to you. You just have to go and apply for a residence permit. That's not a bad thing to have, because some of them lead to citizenship in the future. And so if you're getting a Caribbean passport, maybe that's a stepping stone towards a tier A European passport in the future. So the European issue doesn't bother me because of the ETIAS thing for everybody, including Americans, because of the fact that there are plenty of residence permits available. Again, if you're a clean person to where you can get Caribbean citizenship, you'll be able to get a residence permit, and not all of them in Europe even require any kind of investment. Here's where I think people need to be honest with themselves. There are people who want to say, oh, look, these Caribbean passports aren't as valuable as they once were. I and many others have started to suggest it's not just visa-free travel that matters. It's being able to take back control of your life. It's having an option with a country that doesn't want to tell you what to do the way many Western countries do. Certainly the US is the most aggressive in following you around the world and taxing and regulating you. Having a backup plan to that is worth something. Shouldn't mean that you can go to every country in the world. Obviously, the more countries you can get with a second passport to travel to, the better. Why not? And certainly, if a certain passport were to lose visa-free access to the Schengen zone, that is a blow, because those are popular countries people want to go to. I don't think most people are going to miss not being able to go to the UK, again, if they especially have a good passport. But let's be clear. You either see it as a plan B, or you say, okay, let's say the countries lose access to Europe, I'll get a residence permit and get the passport later. Well, then some people say, well, I don't want to be associated with the European Union. They're going in the wrong direction. Guys, we have to pick which side we're on, all right? Most countries outside of the Western world don't care whether you come. Believe me, the UAE, Malaysia, Colombia, they haven't cared, they don't care, they're going to continue not to care if you got your citizenship by investment. In fact, some of them would say, oh, what a great guy, he spent $100,000 to get a passport. That's the kind of guy we want in our country. It is these countries, which I'm saying now, they have 15%, 1/5 of the world's population, the US, Europe, Australia. Those are the countries that don't like this. That is a small sliver of the world. So you have to make up your mind. Is the UK the place you want to go? Sorry, you probably can't. All the options essentially are closed if you are an investor or entrepreneur. Do you want to go to Europe? Well, there's residence permits. By the way, for some people, you don't need a second citizenship. I do think second citizenship is good, but for some of you, maybe you just go right to the residence permit in Europe. But then you can't say, oh, Europe is falling apart, I don't want anything to do with that. And so there are two camps of nomad capitalists, those who want the best passport and are willing to accept some of the stuff that comes with that in Europe, those who just want a good backup policy. I continue to think that Caribbean citizenship by investment is good for you. So to me, Caribbean citizenship was always part of a greater passport portfolio. You can go to most countries in the world with it that are important to you. Maybe Europe goes away, and I told you how to solve that. This may open up, however. If St. Kitts is a $250 donation and Turkey is $400 in real estate investment, maybe that puts Turkey back in competition for someone who just says, I don't care about visa-free travel to Europe because Turkey doesn't have that. But I'll be able to go everywhere else in the world pretty much as a Turkish citizen. Maybe this brings up, hey, listen, for $800,000 and change, I can go to Malta and I can be a citizen of the European Union in 18 months. Yes, the background checks are going to be strict, but hey, they're going to be more strict in the Caribbean. Maybe it's just worth going for the creme de la creme. I think that's worth considering, and that's probably not going to be an option forever. So overall, as always, and this is why I didn't want to rush to do this, not much ado about nothing, but much ado about speculation. The UK, again, probably a big loss. Europe, there's a way to deal with it. We're not sure what will happen. There's been multiple plans put on the table. Right now, it seems like St. Kitts is going to retain access to Europe. So to me, the biggest news in all this that affects anyone watching is it's going to cost you more. And I've always told you it was going to cost you more. I've said we were in the golden era of citizenship by investment, and we used to post during the crypto boom, hey, it's only 1.8 Bitcoin today, and people would say, oh, it'll be 1 Bitcoin tomorrow. Well, one price is going up, and obviously Bitcoin prices have gone down. So the point is, there's never a better time than the present to protect yourself, because the fact this stuff is happening is proof that Western countries don't like the competition. COVID woke a lot of people up. Just the general direction of these countries and their lack of freedom, their higher taxes is waking people up. Everything about people being more open to travel, more Americans are getting passports, like everything is going in the direction to where these legacy brand countries realize we don't have a death grip on people anymore. They don't like that. They survive charging you high taxes and throwing all kinds of restrictions on you because they have a death grip. And as the death grip loosens and more people watch Nomad Capitalist, they don't like it. Which to me is all the more reason why you want to do this in the first place. I got in St. Lucia when it was $100,000. If I can't travel to a couple of countries, it won't bother me because I have a passport portfolio. And to a certain point I say, if you don't want a rich guy to come to your country, if I bother you that much, you know what? I'll be fine somewhere else. Part of it has to come down to, you're going to eventually have to choose. Do you want Amazon packages delivered to your door? Do you want a passport where you can travel to most places? Again, Europe's going to be hard to travel to, but do you want that? Or do you want total freedom? If you want to be somewhere in the middle, you do what I've done. You do the passport portfolio, you get a bunch of residence permits, you build your stable of options. So you're going to need more options. It's going to cost a little bit more long term, but all the more reason why you should be doing this. We've helped our clients get passports in 31 different countries, so it's not just Caribbean citizenship by investment. You call most of the companies that are based in Dubai and elsewhere, all they sell is Caribbean citizenship, so of course they want you to do that. We do fast-track naturalization, we do citizenship by descent, we do naturalization, we do golden visas that lead to citizenship, paper residences. You might put a couple of those together. No one has the breadth of experience in this area that we do, and that's part of why I don't feel as worried about this. Yes, there are going to be some Caribbean citizenship companies that are going to have some problems. There are so many different options out there, and if you're a Westerner, this is the time to take advantage of them because it's not going to have the impact that these stories make you think it will.